I didn't know the words could change the shape of my whole life until my sister said them on a Tuesday night, standing under the porch light where moths kept throwing themselves at the bulb like tiny drunk astronauts. If I'd cut the evening 5 minutes short, if I'd said goodnight and gone to bed, maybe I'd still be walking around inside the old version of my life, the one that fit like a favorite hoodie. But I didn't, and she didn't, and here we are. My name is Eli, which is short for Elijah if you're a substitute teacher or a doctor holding a clipboard. I'm 16, tall in the way that's mostly angles, and I live in a town where the water tower has our mascot painted on it in a way that makes it look like the panther's eyes are following you down Main Street. The town is called Willow Creek, though if there ever was a creek it must have gotten shy and gone underground, because all we have are ditches that fill up after storms and mosquitoes that rise off them in clouds like cheap smoke effects. We're in the Midwest, which people like to say is the heart of the country, and maybe that's true. Sometimes I think it's more like the lungs, always breathing in weather and breathing out small talk. The seasons are dramatic. Spring hits like someone flipped a switch from gray to green, summer is cornfields laid out like chessboards, fall smells like bonfires and flannel, and winter is a dare you either take or you don't. We take it, because we're from here. We shovel and salt and pretend we don't feel our faces. I live with my parents in a blue house with paint that chips no matter how much Dad swears at it. On the mailbox, the last name, Hart, slants a little from where the snowplow clipped it 2 winters ago and Dad declared he'd fix it this weekend, and then didn't. The porch sags in the way porches do when they've listened to too many conversations. Our street is a loop, a lazy oval where bikes and gossip go around and around until they run out of steam. If home is the blue house, then the center of the house is my sister, Nora. She's 22 and lives at home again after college, which she swears is temporary but which Mom says with a look that means, leave it be. Nora has the kind of smile that makes people tell her things they shouldn't, and she keeps everything, even when it's heavy. She's 5'0" with hair so dark it picks up the sun like water does. She's a nurse at the clinic on the edge of town where kids come in purple with strep throat and old guys come in grumbling about blood pressure cuffs and everyone leaves with a sticker if they want one. Nora and I are 6 years apart, which should be a canyon, but somehow it's a bridge. When I was little, she made me cereal towers and read me comics with voices, and when I got bigger, she taught me how to drive in the parking lot behind the grocery store after closing. She's the one who told me that if you ever bring a girl home, hide the good snacks first, because Mom will suddenly remember she bought them for company. She calls me kid, even though I'm taller than she is by a foot and my shoe prints swallow hers on the sidewalk. Mom works at the library and knows how to make her voice soft enough that even the loudest kid will whisper back. She never returns books late. I once thought that was a rule, but now I think it's a vow she made to herself the year she started, tucked beside other vows she never says out loud. Dad does something with insurance that makes people either very relieved or very mad, sometimes both. He whistles pop songs in the morning like he's practicing being a kettle. We're not fancy, but we're fine, which in Willow Creek is basically rich. We have a yard big enough for a wiffle ball game where the maple tree is first base and the oil stain in the driveway is third. We eat spaghetti on Thursdays because that's when the sauce goes on sale and because Dad believes in traditions, even the ones he invented. We argue about who left the lights on and who finished the milk and who didn't replace the toilet paper roll, and then we sit down and watch old game shows like we're training for a very specific emergency. I play baseball. Shortstop, mostly, which is the position for people who want to get in front of problems and then throw them away quickly. Coach says I've got hands, which is better than the time he said I had potential, because potential is what adults say when they're not sure they'll be around to see you use it. I run cross-country in the fall because I like the way it feels to move through the world without having to say anything to it. On the weekends, Willow Creek is the same as every weekend: farmers market in the church parking lot, kids hawking lemonade like they've invented it, teenagers orbiting each other at the dairy barn, old men collecting at the diner like coins in a jar. The waitress at the diner, June, calls everyone honey and brings extra napkins to anyone under 12. You can tell the people who grew up here by the way they stand at the four-way stop. They don't creep forward, they wait and wave and somehow all go at the same time without crashing. Outsiders inch. We see it. We forgive it. If you came over on a Sunday afternoon, you'd probably find Dad on the porch with the paper, Mom in the kitchen trying to get ahead on the week and failing, and Nora sprawled sideways on the couch with her socks half off, reading something for work but mouthing along to the Judge show on TV anyway. I'd be at the kitchen table doing homework I should have done Friday, pausing too long over algebra because sometimes I like the idea that numbers can be convinced to behave if you're patient with them. I'm telling you all this because it matters where a life sits before someone picks it up and tilts it. The ordinary stuff, how the house sounds when it settles, where the floorboards creak, which step squeaks loudest on the way down to the basement, those are the things that make you feel like you know your own story. I did. I thought I did. The week everything shifted started like any other, with Mom humming into the coffee pot and Dad cursing quietly at his email like it had offended his ancestors. Nora was on evening shift all week, which meant she didn't start until 2 and didn't get home until almost 11. She left me post-its on the fridge with doodles of syringes saying, "Be brave," next to reminders like, "Feed cat. Cat will act like he hasn't been fed. Don't trust cat. We don't have a cat. It's a neighborhood cat who decided our porch was Switzerland. We call him Colonel Mustard because he's the color of a bad hot dog." On Monday after practice, I biked home with dirt stuck to the back of my calves where the infield had slapped me. The sky was the kind of blue that makes you think the weather is bragging. Nora's car wasn't in the driveway yet, so I beat her home, tossed my glove at the foot of the stairs, and opened the fridge to stare at it like the answer to life was behind the pickles. It was just leftovers and a bowl of cherries with the pits still in like tiny secrets. Mom got home pacing quick from the library, her tote bag sloshing with returned books. "Dinner's make your own," she called, which is shorthand for "I have no plan but we're going to pretend this is fun." I made a grilled cheese that glued to the pan and then had to be coaxed off with a spatula like a reluctant toddler. Mom ate a yogurt standing up, reading texts from someone at the library who had very strong opinions about the display table. "Where's Nora?" I asked, biting into my sandwich and proving to my tongue that the cheese was, in fact, lava. "Evening shift," Mom said without looking up. She said she might be late. Double charting again. Don't wait up. I didn't, because I'm 16 and sleep like I'm trying to win something. When I woke up, there was a light fingerpress of a note under the salt shaker. "Hey kid, don't eat the last of the cherries, I'm saving them for a pie. Also, do you still have my hoodie?" I did. I'd stolen it because it smelled like whatever laundry detergent she uses that never smells like laundry detergent. Tuesday at school, I failed an English quiz I thought I'd passed, and my friend Mateo told me it was because I never underlined the right kind of metaphor. "Teachers love dead birds," he said. "If it's a bird that died in the third stanza, underline it. You can't go wrong." I told him I'd underline anything if it got me closer to AC. After school, we hit balls in the cage behind the gym until my hands buzzed like I'd caught a handful of bees. When I got home, Dad was in the garage pretending to be handy. There's a door he's been meaning to rehang for longer than I've been alive. It's the kind of project that's become part of the family. He calls it, the door, the way some people refer to the war. "Hold this," he said, passing me a level. "Tell me when the bubble is in the middle." "It's like a spirit level," I said, squinting. "Except the spirit is drunk." He laughed and then immediately banged his thumb with the hammer. "Language," he told the hammer, which felt about right. When Nora pulled into the driveway just as the sky was going orange around the edges, she waved with 2 fingers out the window. She has a way of waving like a magician showing her hands. She stepped out, scrub top wrinkled, hair up in one of those messy buns that's a lie because it takes effort to look that accidental. She looked tired in the way tired slides around the edges of your eyes and makes your shoulders a little lower. "Hey," she said to me. "You're wearing my hoodie." It called to me, I said, pulling at the sleeves. Did you save the cherries, or did Colonel Mustard declare fruit law? Cherries are locked down, she said. Cat is on a watch list. She squeezed my shoulder, her hand warm and brief, and for a second I felt that old kid thing where her touch was a place to stand. Tuesday nights, Dad bowls. Mom has a book club that meets in the reading room at the library and eats more cookies than books. That left Nora and me to the house, a quiet that felt like it was holding its breath. We ordered tacos from El Gallo and ate them standing at the counter, because that's what we do when it's just us. We rank salsas and insult each other's topping choices. Nora puts pickled onions on everything like she's trying to ward off vampires. What's new at the clinic? I asked between bites, because I like hearing her say things like O2 Sats and CBC like they're regular words. It makes me feel like the world has layers I could learn if I had the right translation guide. She paused. Not dramatic, just a little stutter in her rhythm, like she'd missed a step on the stairs. Baby with RSV earlier, she said. Scary for a bit. He's fine now. She blew out a single breath, the kind she keeps for when things are done but not finished. I nodded like I understood more than I did. Coach says I float to my backhand, I offered. Says I think too much about the throw before I've got the ball. You do, she said, smiling into her taco. You were born planning the next step. Relax your knees. Trust your feet. Is that medical advice? It's Nora advice, she said. The copay is one hug and returning my hoodie. You collect interest like a loan shark, I said, and bumped her hip with mine. After we ate, we settled into our Tuesday routine without talking about it. I did my homework at the table under the light that makes my math book glow like it's on trial. Nora took a shower that somehow made the whole house smell like eucalyptus. The TV murmured in the other room where nobody was watching it. Colonel Mustard thumped against the screen door with the confidence of someone who believes in second chances. Around 9, Mom texted that she might stay out late because Claire brought brownies. Dad texted a photo of shoes that looked like they'd been dipped in luck. Turkey time, the caption said. He uses bowling words as if we all agreed on their meanings. It meant it would just be us for a while longer. The house settled. Somewhere, the fridge clicked. I worked a little more, and then I didn't. Nora came back down in soft pants and the sweatshirt I'd stolen, which I pretended not to notice. She carried a bowl of cherries that looked like punctuation. She set them between us. Okay, she said, like she'd been building up to something and decided to start small. Pit-to-mouth ratio, go. 3-to-1, I said. Wrong, she said. It's 1-to-1, and you're a coward. She popped a cherry, then caught the pit neatly in her palm, because of course she did. A trick of practice. We spit pits into the same napkin because we're disgusting and because it felt like a rule we made a long time ago. We talked about nothing that felt like everything, how the Twins blew another ninth-inning lead, how the new math teacher says the word, therefore, like a sneeze, how the old swing on the maple tree finally gave up with a snap and a sigh. I should tell you something here about Nora. She's honest, but she's careful. She keeps certain truths like eggs in a carton. She knows which ones can take a bump and which ones will crack if you look at them hard. When we were kids and I asked where babies came from, she gave me the basic gist but left out the parts that would make me ask follow-ups I wasn't ready for. It wasn't lying. It was timing. At least, that's what I thought. At 9:27, because I remember the clock, and I remember the way the digital numbers glowed a very particular blue, she took a cherry stem between her teeth and tied it into a knot. She put it on the napkin like a small trophy. Okay, she said again, and this time the word wasn't a trampoline, it was a platform she was walking onto. What's okay? I asked. I wasn't worried. Not yet. I was 16 and fine and the world was rotating the way it always had. She didn't answer right away. She reached up and tucked a piece of hair behind her ear, a move I'd seen 1,000 times when she was shifting from joke to serious. "Can we sit outside?" she asked. "It's nice." "Sure," I said, because it was June laying its hand on the back of your neck and saying, "Hey there." I followed her to the porch. The night smelled like cut grass and a memory I couldn't quite place. Moths battered themselves stupid against the porch light, and Colonel Mustard took up his post on the top step like a guard who'd missed his shift. We sat. The swing creaked in a way that suggested it had opinions. The neighborhood was mostly quiet, TVs talking softly through screens, someone laughing too loud 2 houses over, a dog in the distance announcing the existence of squirrels. Nora folded her legs under her and turned toward me, and that's when I felt it, the tiniest tilt. Like the house shifted or the earth remembered some old injury. Nothing you could point to. Just the sense that the next words mattered. "Hey, kid," she said. I looked at her. The porch light carved a shadow under her eyes that made her look a little older, or maybe it made her look like she was carrying something she'd carried for a while. "Yeah?" I said, "Easy." She swallowed. You could hear it in the quiet. "I want to tell you a story," she said. "About a boy who lived in a blue house and wore his sister's hoodie and thought he knew where he came from." I laughed, because it sounded like an opening. Is this a parable? Are there fables? Does the boy learn not to leave dishes in the sink? "Maybe," she said, half smile. Then she lost the smile. "Eli," she said, and the way she said my name made me straighten. "I've been wanting to tell you this for a long time. I wasn't sure when to do it. I wanted it to be right. I don't know if there's a good way. There's just the truth. Something in me went still the way deer do when they're deciding between running and trusting." But I nodded. "Okay," I said, "because that's what you say when someone you love is walking carefully." She looked past me at the yard, at the maple tree that holds our history in its bark. When she looked back, her eyes were full and bright, not with tears exactly, but with that wetness that says, "This is real." She took a breath, let it out. "You're my favorite person," she said. "That's not news," I said, trying to make it light. "I'm beloved. It's a burden." She didn't bite. "Promise me you'll remember that," she said, like she needed it in the air between us. "That I love you. That nothing about what I'm about to say changes that." Now I was scared, but not of anything I could name. Family disease history, maybe? Someone moving? Someone dying? I thought I could see the shapes of the possibilities, and there was a weird relief in thinking of them because it meant they were ordinary fears. Fears with forms. "Nora," I said, the word thin. "You're freaking me out a little." "I know," she whispered. "I'm sorry." She reached for my hand. When she got it, she didn't squeeze, she held it like proof. "You were born on a cold morning in January," she said, "and that didn't throw me because I knew my birthday. It had snowed the night before, the kind that squeaks under your boots. Mom says the sky was the exact color of the hospital walls, which is a terrible color for a sky." "Okay," I said, because I didn't know why we were mythologizing my birth when we usually just ate cake and I got a present that was a little too practical. "You had a lot of hair," she said, a ghost of a smile. "Like you were trying to make up for how bald Dad was getting." She glanced at the door like she expected him to walk out and demand an apology. "Mom held you and cried until her face went funny with it. So did Dad. They'd been waiting for you so long." I blinked. "They had?" I knew they wanted me, obviously. It's the kind of knowledge you assume and don't interrogate. "They waited," she said, and the word had weight. "They wished. They put together a nursery before there was a reason. They were ready to love whoever came." My hand was cold in hers. I don't know why I noticed that. Details try to save you when meaning starts coming for you. "Nora," I said. She nodded, like we were standing on a dock and she was about to tell me to jump. Eli, she said again, and then she let go of my hand so she could put both of hers in her lap like she was showing she wasn't hiding anything. You're adopted. The word hung between us, a new object in a room I thought I knew by heart. I didn't touch it. Not yet. The porch light hummed. A moth smacked itself into the bulb and fell, and then, stupid and brave, flew again. When someone drops a word like adopted into your life, it doesn't land clean. It doesn't just sit there like a new book on the shelf. It moves. It rearranges things. I went to bed that night pretending I could shelve it. I didn't text Nora. Didn't creep into her room to demand more. I just lay in the dark, listening to the quiet click of the house settling, wondering if everything I thought was nailed down had just been pulled up. I woke up before my alarm, which never happens unless I'm sick or it's Christmas. My first thought was the same as my last one the night before, adopted. The word felt too big to say out loud, so I carried it in my mouth like gum I didn't want anyone to see me chewing. At breakfast, Mom poured cereal into 2 bowls, one for me, one for herself. Nora already left for work, she said. Like it was nothing. Like she hadn't detonated my brain the night before. I mumbled something about homework and pretended to read the back of the cereal box while my pulse kept tapping at my neck. School was a blur. I took notes without looking at the page. Mateo asked me twice if I was mad at him, which is how I knew I wasn't hiding my weird very well. I kept thinking about how people say, blood is thicker than water, and wondering what that meant for me now. Was I water? Was I something else entirely? By the time I got home, Nora's car was in the driveway. I sat on my bike in the street for a full minute, staring at the house like it was a stranger's. Then I went inside. She was at the kitchen table, still in scrubs, hair falling out of a bun. She looked up when I came in, and her eyes did that soft thing they do when she knows something's wrong. Hey, kid, she said. I dropped my backpack onto the floor and leaned against the counter. So, last night. She closed her laptop. Yeah. You can't just say something like that and then leave me with it, I said. That's not fair, Nora. Her shoulders dropped. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to dump it on you like that. Then why did you? I asked. My voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp. I'd never been sharp with her before. Because I thought you deserved to know, she said. And because. I don't know. I was afraid if I kept waiting for the perfect moment, it would never come. I crossed my arms. And how long have you known? Her pause was answer enough. Always, she said finally. For as long as I can remember. That's years, Nora. Years of you knowing something about me that I didn't know about myself. She nodded, eyes on the table. I wanted to tell you sooner. I really did. But Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad what? I said. Told you not to. She hesitated, and that was all I needed. Great, I said, my laugh coming out like it had splinters in it. So everyone's just been lying to me my whole life. They weren't lying, she said quickly. They were waiting. They thought it would be better to tell you when you were older. I guess I jumped the gun. I wanted to argue, to throw something, to make her feel the way I felt, off balance, tricked. But her face wasn't smug or defensive. It was tired. Guilty. And it made it harder to stay angry. Who are they? I asked instead. She blinked. Who? My real parents, I said. The words felt strange in my mouth, like I was talking about fictional characters. Her eyes softened even more, which somehow hurt worse. I don't know much. Just that your birth mom was young. Really young. She couldn't take care of you, and, she made sure you ended up somewhere safe. Safe, I repeated, tasting the word. Like I'm a package that got delivered. It's not like that, she said, but her voice was small. We sat there in the kitchen, the hum of the fridge between us. My head was full of questions, but each one felt heavier than the last, and I didn't trust myself to keep holding them. Finally, I said, I'm talking to them. Mom and Dad. Tonight. Nora nodded like she'd been expecting it. I'll be here, she said. If you want me. I didn't answer. I just picked up my backpack and went to my room, shutting the door carefully instead of slamming it, which somehow felt louder. That night, when the three of us sat down at the dinner table, the food on my plate might as well have been sand. Mom asked how practice went. Dad asked if I'd seen the Twins score. I waited until there was a lull, then set my fork down. Nora told me, I said. The silence that followed was thick. Mom's eyes went wide. Dad froze halfway to taking a bite. Told you what? Mom asked, but her voice had that brittle edge of someone who already knows the answer. That I'm adopted, I said. Mom closed her eyes for a second, like she was bracing for impact. Dad set his fork down slowly. Eli, Dad started, but I held up a hand. No, I said. Don't start with some speech. Just tell me why you didn't say anything before now. Mom looked at Dad. Dad looked at Mom. Finally, Mom said, we wanted to wait until you were ready. And you thought that was when? College? My wedding? Never? We thought we were protecting you, Dad said quietly. From what? The truth? I could hear my voice getting tight, but I didn't care. Neither of them answered right away. The only sound was the clock ticking on the wall, each second feeling longer than the last. From feeling unwanted, Mom said finally. The word hit me harder than I expected. I looked at her, and she looked at me, eyes shining. We wanted you, Eli. From the moment we knew you existed, we wanted you. Nothing about this changes that. I believed her. I hated that I believed her, because it would have been easier if I didn't. But believing didn't stop the questions from multiplying. And I knew they weren't going to stop anytime soon. The night after dinner, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, tracing cracks in the paint like they were roads on a map. Somewhere out there was a woman who had carried me, given me a name maybe, and then let me go. I kept trying to picture her face, but every time I got close, it blurred, like she was turning away. In the days that followed, my parents acted like we'd all survived a car crash together, shaken, bruised, but trying to walk it off. Dad got quieter. Mom got louder in a way that wasn't about volume, just about filling the air so there was no room for the silence to grow. Nora hovered, making herself available without pushing. It was a lot. I started noticing little things. How there were almost no baby pictures of me before 6 months. How my baby book had fewer entries than Nora's. How Mom would change the subject when anything about pregnancy came up on TV. Maybe those things had always been there, but now they felt like evidence. One afternoon, I found myself sitting in front of the computer, fingers hovering over the keys. I typed "how to find birth parents" into the search bar, then deleted it. Then typed it again. The results were a mess: DNA kits, reunion stories, horror stories. I clicked on one article and read about a guy who found his birth mom in 3 weeks. Another took 10 years. There was no pattern, no guarantee. At dinner that night, I asked, "Do you know her name?" Mom and Dad exchanged a look. "We do," Mom said carefully. "Will you tell me?" Dad's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Eli, this isn't something to rush into. She may not." "I'm not asking what she wants," I said. "I'm asking what you know." Mom reached for her water. Her name was Claire. Was. Past tense. I caught it but didn't say anything. That night, I wrote the name on a scrap of paper and hid it in my desk drawer. Just seeing it written down made it feel more real. Over the next week, Nora and I found our rhythm again, though it was different now. She asked how I was doing, and I told her the truth in small pieces. She told me she'd always wanted to be the one to tell me, because she thought I'd take it better from her than from Mom and Dad. I told her she was wrong about that, but maybe also a little right. One Saturday, she drove us to the lake. It was cold enough for our breath to fog, but the water was still. We sat on the dock with our feet dangling over the side. "You think you're gonna look for her?" she asked. I skipped a stone, watched it hop twice before sinking. "I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me's afraid she won't want me to." Nora nudged my shoulder. "You can want answers and still be scared of them." I didn't say anything. I just looked at the water, thinking about the empty spaces in my life, the places where pieces were missing, and how sometimes the outline of the missing piece hurt more than the absence itself. The next Monday, I stayed after school to use the library computer. I typed, "Claire Willow Creek Adoption January," and hit enter. Nothing. I tried adding the year. Still nothing. I tried bigger searches, wider nets, but the more I looked, the more I realized I didn't even know where to start. Claire wasn't exactly an uncommon name. By the time I got home, I was tired of the whole thing. I told myself I could let it go, at least for now. Then, 2 nights later, I was digging through the hall closet looking for my winter gloves when I found a box labeled "Miscellaneous." Inside were old tax forms, a broken lamp cord, and, buried at the bottom, an envelope with my name on it. The handwriting was unfamiliar, looping and neat. I opened it. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper. "Eli, I hope you understand someday. See. No return address. No date. Just those 6 words and an initial." I stood there in the half-dark of the hallway, the paper warm from my hands, and felt something shift again. Like the first tilt hadn't been the end of it, just the start. The note sat in my desk drawer for 3 days. Every time I passed by, I thought about opening it again, even though I knew exactly what it said. It wasn't like the words were going to rearrange themselves, but somehow, they still felt alive. 6 words and an initial, holding more weight than some people's entire conversations. On the 4th day, I took it to Nora. She was in the living room, curled up in a blanket with a mug of tea. When I handed it to her, she read it twice, then looked up. "See," she said softly. "Claire." I nodded. "It has to be. Where'd you find it?" "Hall closet. Buried under old stuff." "You think Mom and Dad know it's there?" Her brow furrowed. "Maybe. Maybe not. But if they do, they've been keeping it for a reason." That was the thing, I didn't want to keep feeling like a detective in my own house. I wanted straight lines, not circles. That night, I walked into the kitchen where Mom was drying dishes and Dad was watching a game on his phone. "I found this," I said, setting the note on the counter. Mom's hand stilled on the dish towel. Dad looked up slowly. "Where?" Mom asked. "In the hall closet." "Was this from her?" Dad sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Yes. She wrote it when you were born," Mom added. We didn't know if you'd want to see it. We weren't hiding it to hurt you. We just wanted to protect me," I finished, the words tasting bitter. "You keep saying that." "Because it's true," Mom said. She didn't leave a number or an address. Just that note. And we thought, maybe it was her way of saying goodbye. I looked at the paper. 6 words. Was that goodbye? Or was it the start of something she hoped I'd pick up later? "Do you know anything else?" I asked. "Anything that could help me find her?" Dad glanced at Mom. We know she moved out of state. That's all. We haven't heard from her since. It wasn't enough. It was something, but it wasn't enough. That night, I told Nora I was going to try a DNA kit. If she's out there, maybe she's on one of those sites. She didn't tell me it was a bad idea. She just said, I'll help you. 2 weeks later, the kit arrived. I spit in the tube, mailed it off, and then waited. And waited. And in the waiting, I thought about what I'd say if I found her. Would I be angry? Would I thank her? Both? When the email finally came, my hands shook opening it. The results were a mess of charts and names I didn't recognize, second cousins, third cousins, but one name sat at the top, Claire M. It took another week of messages back and forth before she agreed to meet. She suggested a coffee shop 2 towns over. Neutral ground, she called it. The morning of, Nora drove me. She waited in the car while I went inside. Claire was already there, sitting by the window. She looked younger than I expected, her hair pulled back, eyes that seemed to carry both relief and fear. Hi, I said. Hi, she replied, and her voice cracked just enough to make my chest tighten. We talked for an hour. She told me she was 17 when she had me. That she didn't have the means to take care of a baby, that she'd wanted me to have a stable home. She told me she thought about me every birthday. That the note was her way of saying she loved me without making promises she couldn't keep. I asked her if she ever regretted it. She said yes, and no. She said both could be true. When I stood to leave, she hugged me. It wasn't long, but it was steady. I hope you understand someday, she whispered, the same words from the note. This time, I heard the weight and the hope in them. Back in the car, Nora looked at me, searching my face. Well? I didn't know how to sum it up. So I just said, it was real. And it's not over. Because it wasn't. I had more answers now, but they all had edges. And maybe that was okay. Maybe life wasn't about getting perfect shapes, but about learning how to live with the ones that didn't quite fit. That night, at dinner, I looked at Mom and Dad. I met her, I said. And instead of panic, I saw something like peace in their eyes. We were still a family. Just one with a bigger story than I'd realized. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.